Welcome back to another episode of Dying Out Loud. Dying Out Loud is not just a podcast, it's my personal love letter to life, to the people who've helped shape me, and to the conversations that unfortunately we all put off until it's too late. Every week, I talk with friends, colleagues, and family about the ways that we've impacted each other and what it really means to say the things we don't always say out loud. Things like gratitude, regret, forgiveness, legacy, and just celebrating the joy of life. This podcast is for anybody navigating life after a loss, anyone who's ready to live more intentionally, anyone who just needs a nudge to speak those words that are so important to say out loud. If you're a coach, a creative, or a leader in any industry, and you believe in the power of reflection and human connection, this podcast is for you. And most importantly, if you've ever thought, I just wish I had one more minute so that I could have told them this, then this podcast is for you. Today, my guest is Ben James. Ben is a colleague turned friend, sounding board, and trusted confidant. Through 3 years of regular meetings, coaching, conversations, and laughter, Ben has modeled authenticity, resilience, and the kind of trust that only deepens over time. This conversation today will highlight the value of meaningful relationships that start at work and go beyond. Ben, thanks for joining me and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kris. It's so good to be with you.
This is a really great episode. I think I might have even have said this to you earlier, just about the importance of two grown men that are professionals having a conversation about feelings and emotions and all of the ups and downs of life. And I think it's going to be really valuable for a lot of people listening today.
Getting to know you over the last few years has been a special part of my life. You've been central to connecting with me in the professional sphere, but through our relationship there, we've gotten to know so much about each other. So very happy to be here and share because I hope a lot more people get to know your message by getting to spend time with you.
I appreciate that. I wonder, one of the first things that I wanted to ask you, do you remember the very first time that we met each other at work? I remember it vividly, and I remember something that followed it, and it just strikes me as like the perfect opportunity to lean in and connect with someone.
I mean, I can remember a conversation that we had when we started working together, kind of in a coach, kind of leader format. If there's another piece to it that's different, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a little different actually. I had just come back from my medical leave actually,
Sure.
and was working on a project with Leo, and we were having a conversation on Teams, and it was the first time that I actually had seen you or met you, and it was via Teams, and there were just four of us on that call. And
Mm.
no sooner than probably 30 seconds after we hung up from that call, you actually called me directly via Teams and said, "Hey, I'm Ben. I want to know who you are." And that actually, I think, kickstarted everything. It was the authenticity, the energy that you came to that call with. And for me, I was an account director at that time, and you were and are the chief innovation officer. And I was just happy and thrilled to be able to connect with you. And I was just so interested in picking your brain to learn more about how you got to where you were at in the organization and ultimately in the industry. And I remember leaving that call, that the second call, whenever you and I connected individually, just thinking, this guy is somebody that I wish I would have known like throughout my entire career. And I'm so glad that we have this connection. And I want to figure out a way to make sure that we do get to stay connected, even if the work that I was going to be doing would move me in a different direction other than client and account strategy.
Well, that's so nice. It's funny when you talk about it. Now I can remember it a lot closer. It is, it is. I I'm glad that you felt touched by that. It's good to do it. I do that somewhat regularly on calls like that, not knowing where it will then lead. And sometimes it may be just that and that's over with. But you and I have spoken at length every week, and sometimes more. We've spoken at length every week since. Yeah, in a professional environment, I started doing that, one, largely in the virtual environments, where today in the workplace there's so much happening so fast. We're very often having to collaborate with people that we just don't know very well, and we're expected to instantly trust one another. Sometimes when, I mean, very often and most often when real material business is at stake. And I found it so strange. Like, it used to be that you could meet in a place and you'd walk in, you'd talk to one another, and there was this moment when you'd leave the room and you could talk in the hallway. And when we moved to this place of, like, you get a calendar invite and you show up and there's 4 or 5 people there and you're just jumping into some work and you're just going da 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 da. Sometimes the leader is forgetting about even introducing themselves or like learning about each other. So it was like, just as a way to even to get to know colleagues at Gale, very often I'll just, if I don't know somebody, it's like immediately try to jump back on with them and go, "Hi, let's have some parking lot time together," like, which is like the space in the meeting when we walk out of the building and we just talk to each other for a little bit. How'd that go? What are you feeling? So it's funny. I'm just coming from a meeting. It was kind of like that, actually. But like, yeah, I with you, it's incredible because it carried on into so many conversations that have helped me and affected me very positively. So thank you so much.
I'd love to hear that. And it has definitely been my pleasure. I wonder, knowing, because I do know how busy you are and everything that you have going on in your world, both inside of
Mhm.
work and outside of work. And I'm just curious for myself, in your head, knowing all the priorities that you have, what made you keep showing up for these conversations, which, by the way, we still obviously have? What keeps you coming back to this connection?
I mean, the main thing is it's high value to get together with your friend and talk things out. I'm aware of, loneliness epidemic trends that are in the world, and probably that stuff is much cited and better to be served up by experts. But, you know, how important it is to talk with each other and take pause in what we do. And I try again and again and again just to like pause and spend time with the people that we work with to talk things through. It's not perfect and want to do it more, but just a moment to reflect. The other thing is, found a lot of things in our discussion where we could bond on different levels for where each of us was at different points in both our professional and personal lives. That I think just being able to talk a little bit more about like where we were coming from. I mean, I think what's really special about what we've done together professionally, is that you have come in so informed and connected to the craft of what we're trying to do, which is kind of a zany business. The ever evolving world of the commercial arts, and like you kind of understand you very much understand the pressures and details involved with that. But just also, we found a place very early on that we no longer had to talk about trust trees and so forth. We just trusted, and we could just get into it. And so really appreciated the chance to do that, and that you gave space for it. And so, I mean, you kept showing up, so I was like, I better, you know.
I will say, I think the reason that I keep showing up is A, through those discussions, I think if someone was sitting and listening to them, they would think, boy, we both talk in circles, which sometimes both of us do that. But in talking in those circles, we always come out with a root cause to a problem or something that we both feel is like very important to the way our organization is growing and evolving. And one of the things that for myself, that I picked up so early on was a lot of the things and the approaches that you take and how you do your work and that connection that you look to have with other people in our organization, it's the same thought process that I have. And I thought for myself, there's so much to share and understand about a part of our industry that I don't spend a lot of time in anymore. And you have truly become, I feel like, my link to everything that's going on. Being in a remote office, working with 11 other people that all are in a different domain than I am, I a lot of times do feel a little tiny bit of disconnect. And I try to nurture and create relationships that keep me rooted to what's going on in the business. But I have learned so much from you about how you function and just you succeed in life and have all of the responsibility that you do. It's been truly enlightening to get to just be a part of your journey. And on the coattails of that, I'm having a journey as well and growing and learning and evolving. And I tell people all the time, whenever, especially whenever a younger person asks me, where did you learn how to become a leader? And my answer is always, I'm still learning to become a leader. Like, I think it until the day that I take my last breath, I'm going to still be trying to figure out the most effective way to truly make a connection with someone. Because when you can start that place off and create that safe space that really we've created for each other, the benefits to having that kind of connection are, it's more than a 10x benefit. It's so exponential. And the way that we're able to discuss really anything under the sun and have a truly meaningful and educational conversation about it, where we can walk away saying, damn, it felt really good to be able to have that conversation and to have it with someone who knows exactly all of the pieces of the puzzle that we're talking about. It's pretty rare, I feel like, today in the business world to have that kind of genuine connection and really to be able to talk about such a wide variety of things that are truly impactful to each other. And so I definitely appreciate the opportunity that we have had. And I feel really fortunate to have landed in a place at Gale where this is part of what I do, is get to connect with people. And granted, not every connection that I have is quite like this one, but it's really been part of, if I look at joy over the course of the last 3 years, this has been one of the hugest sources of it for me. Truly thrive on connections like ours.
Well, I mean, that's so nice to say. I mean, a lot of what you're sharing, I think, is what I find really interesting about what we do in any work setting. I think, for me, it's especially so in the world of creative thinking and marketing strategies and all that stuff. I mean, we we're dealing day to day in some pretty intense, subject matter from time to time, depending on what we're trying to do. And places where I have worked where it works really well is, you know, there's a high value on the time spent together. I think one thing that often happens in an attempt to make it high efficiency is to try to, come in with exactly the clear agenda, exactly ask what needs to be done, communicate the information, do the next steps out, and yeah, I think from meetings that are just sharing a lot of volume of information is that, but meetings that are more brainstorms or necessary to share the point of view of the people in the room, I think it's important to try to make space for that. And there's always all kinds of ways of thinking about it. I mean, you mentioned talking in circles. I mean, oh man, Kris, I spend so much time hearing that about like that's the way that I think, and like people going, oh God, get to the point, or like like do this kind of thing, and then at the same time, when we give it time, we often land on a point that is super valuable, and it can be fulfilling, and it can also be lucrative, and as a creative, I learned the power of divergent thinking to, think about these many things, or the power of systems thinking and the power of scenario planning. And I think decks and all that are nice to, frame things up and make it where like large rooms of people can take on the information around either getting their mind around a proposal, or when some information is reported, what they should do with it. But very, very often, innovation, which is ultimately about providing new value, comes from someone having the room to be able to be heard from, the point of view of they see a problem and they're trying to fix it. And I mean, we we have a whole wealth of human experience to offer these things. So, is the purpose of this meeting to discuss the 30 minutes in the last meeting, or is the purpose of this meeting to maybe benefit from some perspective that could be informed by something you experienced when you were a child or as a father? Like very often, the breakthroughs actually come through those connections. So I make a lot of time for it, and that's how I kind of do things. From time to time, it's made me personally a little like a little wild. Like you try to they think, and I can overthink things, but I just find so much value connecting with people on a human level. We have a new creative director starting with us, and we were, just at an after work, kind of bonding experience, everybody together, about 15 of us, but we were just talking to the side, and we'd been talking for months from the time that she interviewed, and then recently for the last couple months since she's been here. And just that pause to be able to talk for a little bit, we found out that we were from towns right next to each other in Texas, and we didn't know that. And we walked away just looking at each other like, I'm so glad I know this about you now. And it's a bit of a perspective shift when you can spend time and listen to people.
So true. It's really interesting, especially that how small the world actually is. That recently happened to me at work as well, where, and the town that I am from is extremely small. It's a very small farm town. Less than 500 people live in the actual town itself. And I met a G on the other side of the country who is from the town right next to it, but his entire family is from the town that I grew up in.
Yeah.
And it, obviously, the connection ensued immediately after because I was able to say names of people and he had awareness of those folks, their families. And it's a really interesting tie to bind someone. And again, if you're not making space for those types of conversations, if you're not naturally curious about other people, you're going to miss out on the opportunity to really find some commonality and find a way to lean into a potential relationship, whether it's from a collaborative perspective or it ends up becoming a friendship later on. Without asking those questions and listening for those answers, you really miss out on a lot of opportunity for that level of connection.
It's true. I think we need to make more room for it.
I definitely agree. I was talking with someone this morning and we were talking about artificial intelligence and what we thought about it. And I am a perfect use case scenario for this because for myself, it's really started my adoption of the pieces of AI that I incorporated into my workflow has really afforded me about 10 extra hours every week to two for more one-to-one human connections where I can help people strategize or help them remove a roadblock or just be a listening ear for them for whatever the situation might be. And that is something that I really value about where we are fortunate enough to work is that there is a level of support behind the scenes and no one person in our organization is out in a silo by themselves. We've got plenty of other great folks with great brains. When, yeah, go ahead,
AI had a deep impact on my life recently. I'll quickly share a story with you.
please.
My wife sent me like a Saturday shopping list, like texted it to me, and it was like just like lists of the things that were coming to mind, with like slashes in between it and stuff. And so then I was going to the grocery store, and I think it's okay to say a brand name. I was going to Whole Foods. And so I took the list and I put it into Chat GPT, and I said, "Can you organize this list according to its best efficiencies aligned to the average foot pattern through a Whole Foods?" And I was like, "You can organize it by, section or, whatever." And it came back and it gave me, okay, this stuff is the produce, this stuff is the proteins, this stuff is the dairy, this stuff is the condiments, and it grouped it into about 9 levels, and it totally crushed it. So each little space, it told me just spend time here and get these three things, spend time here and get these three things. I think it saved me 45 minutes because if you send me into a
Jeez.
grocery store with stuff, I'm like, ping, 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 ping. And I got to return all that time back to then just driving home and being with my family.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, well, that was helpful. And so now they know what we were shopping for, and and there's a lot to be said about what you got to worry about with it all, and all that kind of stuff. But these technologies keep getting introduced that are going to just, we find a way. I think we need more time together as humans in order to figure out what to do with all of these things to do the best for the world. But yeah, it's so interesting the way that we're finding value in all that right now.
I definitely agree. And those are exactly the type of efficiencies that I think we all want in our life is how we spend less time doing tasks like go to the grocery store. I am also the type of person that you don't want to turn loose in a grocery store because depending on my mood, that will dictate what we are eating for the next 2 to 3 weeks. So
I
it's
can I
much
can get
safer.
I can get like deeply interested in bean dip and spend a lot of
Oh
time in a
yeah,
bean dip for a while.
100%. That is extremely relatable. Been every episode of this podcast, and quite honestly, the motivation for this really was a very intentional way for me to share the impact that my guests have had on my life. And, certainly, and I think probably most relevant to the people that are listening, my own stage 4 cancer journey. And I already expressed that just being able to do what I get to do for the organization that I get to do it for is one of the hugest sources of joy and positivity in my life. And I know I've shared this with you before, but I honestly think that the work that I get to do is 100% the reason that I'm still alive today. And for that, I'm thankful. But as it relates to you specifically, I actually started this whole idea of a podcast out by writing letters to people that I fully intended to mail, especially as I got to a place where I might be not able to work 40 hours a week, or I might be feeling extra sick or weak. And so I had compiled this list of these communications that were amazingly cathartic to write. And then I started to think about what happens if tomorrow comes and I don't wake up, which sounds very morbid to think about, but then I would have this journal full of these beautiful letters and sentiments, and they would never reach the person that they were intended for. And I tell people all the time that the thing that keeps me going is the connection that I have with people. But yet there's so many things that I have yet to share with those individuals. And they're words that I really want you to hear. And what a better way to do it than be able to share it with you. We're not in the same room, but we're face to face. And I think the words still pack a good punch. So I'm going to share some thoughts with you, and then I'll give you a chance to just digest them, and we'll pick back up on the other side. Ben, when we first sat across from each other on Teams almost 3 years ago, I would never have guessed in that instance what this friendship, relationship, colleagueship would actually come to mean to me. What started out as a strategy session for a client that we were doing at pitch work became one of the most steady and meaningful parts of my life. Our weekly chats were really supposed to benefit you, but they've become a rhythm in my day to day and my week to week that I didn't know I needed until they were inserted into my world. You've taught me more than you will ever know about things like patience, not just the kind that you personally extend to others, but the kind that you hold for yourself when there's not an easy, fast, or clear path to the end result. And resilience. Ben, the way that you carry yourself through all the pressure, ambiguity, and complexity that life brings has actually made me a braver person. To me, you have a way of grounding every room that you walk into. And it isn't by commanding attention, but it's by creating genuine space for people built out of kindness and heart. You have created a place for me where it's safe to be fully myself. You've made space for laughter, reflection, and really the messiness of what life and work bring to the table. I trust you completely, and I don't say that lightly to very many people. You have become more than a colleague, more than a coaching partner. You're a friend and mentor that I look forward to hearing from every single week. When you're on vacation, in those very rare instances, I'm ready to catch up with you as soon as you're back, hear about that vacation, and start looking forward to what's next for both of us. I genuinely thank you and appreciate you so much for letting me into your world. I appreciate the fact that you have stayed in mine, and I want you to know that you have impacted me in ways that I'll probably never be able to even articulate, but I still had to try. And just know that wherever the roads take either of us from this point, I am today and always will be grateful that our paths intersected for the time that they have intersected. Truly appreciate you, my friend.
Kris, I really appreciate you too. That's so lovely that you wrote that, and I appreciate. There's so many things that you said that I feel the same, and going right back at you. Yeah, no, thank you so much.
Yeah, covered a lot actually in just a short period of time. And I think everybody has a probably a really nice, colorful image of the evolution of our relationship. And I'd love to know if you were giving advice to anybody that's listening about how to form, maintain, follow up on the connections that you've had through life, if you have any tips or tricks that you might share with them.
It's, I came up with one while you were talking earlier. Is sometimes you got to ignore the hard stop, like just go ahead and like let the next thing go to spend time with the people that you're with. You know, use the all these time management capabilities we've been given to create more time with each other, to try to learn from each other, and then from that try to truly listen and do what you can to do the right thing, um and I mean, I've tried, this, I've tried this year to try to engage in practicing stoicism. One of our colleagues, introduced that to a few of us, and I'm learning not to beat myself up so much about the stuff, and rather than spend time doing that, like put time in the work to try to do better with each other. But Kris, I've learned so much from you. It's a head trip, man, to like think about like you saying that it went the other way and something intended to benefit me. It absolutely did. You know, it absolutely has. Will continue to do so.
I love that. And that will continue to do. And for as many years as we get to do this, I look forward to all of the amazing things that we're going to accomplish individually, as a team, and as part of a larger team of incredible folks. And I think that's a great place to wrap up for today.
Well, as you
So,
know, I have a hard stop, so we gotta.
yeah, it was quite literal. In
No,
one
no, no,
second,
I don't actually.
oh, good. In one second, I was going to let you go, but I wanted you to be here for this last word, and that is, folks, the people who show up for you quietly and consistently, the ones who ask how you really are, and then they make space for your response without demanding anything in return. Those are the people that change us, just like Ben has changed me. And my challenge to anyone out there who's listening is, if you have someone like a Ben in your life, don't wait so long to share these words with them. Use this moment that we have, the moment that you hit stop or you put down your phone, pick it back up and send a text message, make a FaceTime call, and say whatever the words are that you have been waiting to say or that have been at the tip of your tongue and you just haven't taken the moment to pause. This is me telling you, take the pause, don't wait, and use this moment. And until we come back next week, that's it for us today. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Kris. Thanks, everybody.